My name is Ana Campos. I am a fourth year, and my major is communications and social work.
Jessica Ceja. I'm a fourth year, majoring in liberal studies.
My name is Jacqueline Hernandez. I am a fourth year biology major.
Destiny Lopez. I'm a third year, and then I'm majoring in political science with a minor in EDS.
My name is Roberto Saldana. I am a second year from Ravel, and my major is environmental chemistry.
It is when people have difficulties with their eating, I guess. An example is anemia, anorexia, or bulimia.
Eating disorder is something like that a person struggles with. Like you could say it's like psychological, and like some examples could be like excessive eating or not eating at all. So I think it's anorexia and I forget the other one for the excessive eating.
I think an eating disorder is just someone who tries to use food as like a method of control. Because I know sometimes, like, at least for me, like I know people who've had these eating disorders, and the biggest thing is like when they feel like they have no control over anything else, it's the only thing they can. So they'll either like restrict the amount of food that they eat or overeat and then like binge if they need to. So like an example, like anorexia, usually it's like they restrict their intake, like really cut it down, the amount of calories that they eat, and like so I've known friends that only drink like water and like they have like celery or like I don't know. I just feel like it's just like restricting your intake or you overeat to like throw up later.
Eating disorder, in my opinion, has to do with like being connected to a mental illness that manifests itself in an actual habit or activity, right, or action. So I would say it's a mental illness that impacts eating habits. That would be an eating disorder. And it could be anorexia or bulimia. Those are the two main ones that I know.
I wouldn't know how to define it, but if I had to put in words, it'd be like, definitely it's a mental kind of, not a mental disease, but it's like something mentally that you struggle with, whether it's overconsumption, underconsumption of food. It's like a battle you have with food. And what was the other question?
Can you give an example?
Like bulimia or like anorexia or
The first case, as in years.
Like
How
what
long
era?
ago? Probably in the 1800s.
Like a year, or
Or just like a
in general?
like a broad, yeah.
Okay.
Just a broad time period.
Maybe 1930s, 1940s.
I feel like it's been around probably for a really long time. If I had to put a year on it, I don't know, like 1800s.
It would be linked to when social media or the media started picking up, which I don't know when that is, but if I'm just gonna guess, let's go with 1700s. Or no, that's too early. 1800s. Let's go with 1800s.
I'm gonna say 1492.
Very specific, okay.
Whoa.
So it was way before that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's been around for a really long time. So,
What?
yeah, it's been around for a really long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was kind of close.
Yeah, you're kind of close. Give or take a couple years.
Anxiety, depression, and like, yeah. That's it.
We'll try to separate them. So for anorexia, what would those symptoms be? And
Okay.
for bulimia, what would those be?
Anorexia, I guess anxiety, depression, and for bulimia, I don't know.
Anorexia, I know it's all psychological, so they probably look at themselves in the mirror and they just see themselves as like being overweight. So maybe some symptoms that could come with that could be like
baggy sweaters or like baggy clothes. That way people can't see like the weight loss. Or they'll hide food or make it seem like to make it seem like they're eating, but really they're just hiding it. And that's all I can think of.
I guess the only symptoms I could think of would probably be things that I've seen on TV. So like, I used to watch this show called Intervention, and sometimes they would deal with people that were living with eating disorders. And so when it was anorexia, they were just really, really skinny. Like bones would show. They were pretty prominent. I would say because they're not getting enough nutrients, their skin was like discolored. I don't know. Those are the two things I could think of.
And for bulimia, do you know any?
The episode I watched with somebody that was bulimic, I didn't see anything physical that I would say like, oh, that person might have an eating disorder. So I can't think of any.
Symptoms?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
You would know.
I guess as I mentioned before, depression, anxiety, not being able to focus, I think it's a big one. And I guess like issues socially, like how do you interact with others? Because you already have issues among yourself, so like having to like socialize can also arise.
I know their body is affected, so I think for anorexia, I think because they're so thin, they start to grow like abnormal like hair all over their body to like try to keep warm, you could say. And aside from that, just like psychological, so like mental health is affected.
I feel like it can also like mess, like if you're not getting adequate amount of food, it can mess with like your brain chemistry a little bit too. Like you, like I just know, so like it has to like self-esteem problems, like that's usually a big one. Or sometimes they can fall into depression, or if they're not getting like adequate brain, like even like simple tasks like just walking up, you know, like in class, like I don't know, I think just not having adequate food could just really mess with like your ability to think and like focus. Because I know I do when I don't eat. Like, I'm not anorexic, but like if I don't eat, then like I just can't focus on anything else. So like I can't imagine.
I think it can impact overall health. Without like the proper nutrients to boost the immune system, other things can become complicated. I think mental health is a big thing. So overall confidence or ability to socialize in normal activities. And so like one example would be like sometimes for people's birthdays they like to go out and eat, right? And so going to a restaurant might be complicated for somebody that has an eating disorder because they have a different relationship with food to just go out with a group of people and be like, oh yeah, let's order something, right? So I think mental health with confidence and socialization.
There's a lot of, a lot of health risks that come with eating disorders. Like, I think like certain cancers can happen, like stomach cancer, I know that for a fact. Certain, like you can underdevelop, you can get, like problems with your stomach, with your dietary, your digestive tract. You can get ulcers, you can really damage your stomach. You can damage your whole body with eating disorder because it's what fuels your body is food. So it's like a number of things that can happen.
I believe it does, because like the kids might hear it at home, like as a loving way. However, at school they might get bullied using those words, so like it could like affect them.
I don't think they do, because I remember in high school I had a friend, her nickname was actually Gorda, and at least she knew that we said it out of love. So, and like I never saw her having any kind of eating disorder, but I think it just depends on how it's like those words are used.
Yes, I actually have a cousin and we call her Flaca because she's always been super, super skinny. I mean, she's fine, like she knows that she's skinny and like she'll eat, but she just doesn't gain weight. Some people just have that metabolism, they're fine. So yes, I don't, my little sister, sometimes we tease her about like her belly, like my little brother's belly too, and like my sister already thinks she's fat and she's 7. So yes, I do believe that words like that can really impact especially kids, because they grow up seeing like how they do television movies, and it's like it does have a great impact on them because I've already seen it happening with my little sister. So yeah, I really do think, and I think those words shouldn't be used, especially towards kids.
I definitely think it does. It's normalized to use those words which refer to one's like physical appearance, right? So growing up, they always called me flaca. Well, my tia did. And it made me so mad all the time. So I think it really does impact people, especially if that's not the way that they want to be perceived, which can cause certain behaviors as a result. So yeah, that's a big one. And I think for some people it could be like, oh, it's no big deal, whatever, I've gotten used to it. But for other people it could be like, well, why do they keep calling me that? I need to try and undo whatever it is that I am right now so that they can stop calling me that. So I think it has a really big impact on things. Like, I know when I was younger, when they would call me flaca, I was always like, I'm not skinny, like, leave me alone. So I'd overeat for no reason, just to like, well, see, I eat, like, I'm not skinny because I don't eat. So it's like those simple things of just calling someone like a certain name or something can impact actual behavior, so that people try to go.
I think it does for people who do struggle with eating and like with their weight, because it kind of like normalizes the whole idea of like being fat, and it kind of makes you feel like you're stuck being that fat person. So it kind of, I think it further like upholds the idea of just, you know, you're always going to be fat. So I think that's why people who struggle with eating disorders kind of visualize themselves as always fat. And like in Latino culture, like when you say like pancho and pancha and like gorda, like those like so like those cultural, like, you know, names or whatever, I think really kind of perpetuate that idea of like you're always going to be fat, you know, no matter what. So I think it does hurt kids who are struggling with eating. So
They did, because I have anemia. So since I was little, they like try to teach me what's good to eat, what's not good to eat.
No, my parents never talked to me about it. But my mom would always tell me, oh, you have to eat, like, all the time. But she never like talked about like eating disorders.
Yeah. I know my mom never did, that I can like remember. I did have a lot of self-esteem issues growing up too, but like I've never like had an issue with it. Like I never liked how I looked, but didn't try to do anything about it. I guess in that sense, like restricting my intake, I'm not sure why she did it. I don't think she ever thought like it would be an issue for me, or like I don't think she's like one of those moms like just thinks like, oh, it never happened to like my child, so there's no reason to talk about it.
We never directly talked about it, but when I mentioned Intervention, right, the show, I always watched that with my mom growing up. And so when I did watch the episodes that involved eating disorders, I watched them with my mom. So we would talk about it while it was going on, but it wasn't a like, let's sit down and talk about how this could impact you or have like a learning experience. It was more like, we're watching it, we're being exposed to it, this is what it is, that's it. But aside from that, it never really came up.
no, my parents never did, and I don't know why. I think it was just because in our family, like, no one's ever, or that they know of, was someone that like struggled with like eating disorder. Like nobody knew about it and nobody knew how to handle it. So it was just something that they just never thought was something to talk about.
Yes. I believe for Latino culture, the perfect woman would be like not as slim and skinny, but curvy. She needs to have like a shape to her body, and the man needs to be tall and have muscles, I guess. Not muscular, like exaggerating, but like thick.
At least in my family, I feel like being thin is not like the norm, you could say. I feel like you have to have kind of like curves for girls at least, so that's like the opposite of being thin. You know?
And for the men, what do you think?
For the men, I think, yeah, I feel like muscular is the social norm in my
Issues with, like, I know like we're a bigger family. Like, we're not super skinny, but like we don't care. Like, I think I guess in a sense, yes, we do have our own standards, but I think it's just from the fact that like we're just proud of ourselves.
And what do you think those standards are? Or give just a couple of examples of what you think.
I guess like going back to how like flaca and like gorda like use, like I guess in a way like it's okay to be a little bit big. Like I've always like heard the term like, oh, thick is good. Like it's okay to be like thick or like bigger. So I guess yeah, in a sense like it's okay like being bigger.
I definitely think that beauty trends change often, and so I think right now it's not necessarily the skinny image of a woman that's I guess romanticized. It's more like the very curvy shape that's romanticized right now, which I think is the shape that is often also held at a higher standard in Latinx culture. Just like the fuller body, but a certain type of full body. Like it has, like I hear it in songs all the time, like the Coca-Cola bottle shaped body. It's a little tough to say. So I think that would be the ideal. I don't know if maybe it changes based on culture, but from my perspective as a Latinx person, it's more of the curvy figure that's acknowledged. And then for males or male identifying folks, I think that's a tough one. I think right now there's this whole craze over like working out. Like everybody's posting videos of working out and being healthy and stuff, which being healthy looks different on different people. But I think for males it is really encouraged right now to have like muscles and be toned.
I think it's just like everybody else is like they do idealize. They do like want to have the ideal figure of like, you know, women want to be really thin and really like the ideal of like the postmodern beautiful woman, which is like a thin body, you know, big breasts, and like for a man it's muscular fit, you know, big arms, big chest. So I think they're the same as.
That's a good question.
Well, what do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't know. I think eating disorders is something you develop as you're growing up. So I don't think it's passed down genetically.
I don't think genetically, only because I feel like that's more of a mental thing, and I don't think mental disorders are like passed on.
That's a really good question. I don't know if it can necessarily be passed down genetically, because just even like as a bio major, I don't even know if like that is a gene, because usually those behaviors or like those thoughts are usually learned based on your environment. At least I think so. Could there be a gene? Probably. I think most of the time it has to do like with how they're raised, their environment at school, like friends, kids can be mean sometimes, so that can influence how they view themselves, and eventually if they end up having eating disorders as they get older, then like that can be an impact. But yeah, I'm not sure like if there necessarily is a gene, because I feel like it's more environmental that can affect one, but there could be things.
Yeah, I think so. I think I mentioned before that I think it's connected to like mental health and mental illnesses, which can be passed down. So I would say
It's more behavioral, so it's what you surround yourself and who you surround yourself with a lot. Has to do a lot with that. So I don't know if it's like hereditary or like you said genetic based, but I do feel like it's a pattern that you can pick up.
Yeah, I think it can. Like it affects you mentally.
How so?
Well, if you are focused a lot on what you're eating or what you're not eating, I feel like it like in a sense it like affects you psychologically, because you're always thinking about that. You know, like you're thinking about your image, you're thinking about what's gonna make you fat or stuff like that.
I think it can, because if you start thinking that you're fat, obviously your brain eventually will always like be thinking like that, and each time you look in the mirror, you'll be having that kind of idea.
I think it definitely can. Like if you have like people who have eating disorders, like they're already in a different mindset on how they view themselves or how they view certain situations. Like, you know, if like something happens and they're automatically gonna either blame themselves, be like, oh, it's because I'm fat or because I'm this, and then that just feeds more into them wanting to lose that weight or be skinny. And like, yeah, I think it can definitely have a play on someone's mindset.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Cool.
I don't know if I can elaborate on it.
I think it really does change your mindset on like how you view yourself, most importantly, but also how you view food, how you view your living situation, how your health is viewed. I think eating disorders do affect you mentally, definitely, along with physically as well, but it is like a mental toll.
Getting kids educated on what it is, and also like start teaching them at a young age what is healthy from what is not, and letting them know that it's okay, that if they are going through this, so like let them know that there are resources or like there are people they could go to in case they. Yeah.
So at what age do you think would be beneficial for students to learn about eating disorders?
I feel like at the beginning of middle school, so around 11, 12.
Low-income communities, I guess. I feel like the school is the most important thing. So just having maybe a counselor or like some kind of outside resource come to the schools like maybe once a month, just to remind the students like about these type of disorders, and if they have them, where to get help.
I think eating disorders, along with like many other things, should be like included in like schools, like curriculum, because I feel like if you're not aware, if kids are like, not saying elementary school, but like in middle school, I feel like is when it gets to be an issue, like looks and like appearance gets to be an issue. But if they're not aware of it, then many times if they're having these feelings or having these thoughts, they don't know what to do with it because they weren't taught. Same thing with like sex ed, like you don't teach kids about that, then when they get older they don't know what to do. So it's like, I think it's the same thing. So I think if we maximize how it's being taught in schools, and then also like with media, like, you know, like it's okay to have like, if there's a big actress, like you don't need to hire like the very skinny, like blonde hair, blue eyed like model. I don't know, I just feel like if it's portrayed less in media that being skinny means being better looking, then it could also help for kids who are watching this stuff.
I think one, acknowledging it is really important. I consider an eating disorder as like a mental health condition, and so I think in Latinx communities or in low-income communities or communities of color, mental health is oftentimes disregarded. Like, just pray about it, just get over it, you'll be okay. And so I think that just acknowledging that it's an issue first is a start, and then from there having the proper support that comes with acknowledging it. So it's not like, oh, you have an eating disorder, yay, cool, deal with it, you know, but actually like, okay, let's talk about this. How can we go through this process together? Now, what that looks like, I don't know, maybe it could be programs in schools or community centers that have workshops for parents, but just that exposure and that proper support to start dealing with it already, I think is
the education, just talking about it, and you know, getting rid of that stigma about people who do struggle with those, that it is like a mental, you know, like this, I don't want to say disorder, but it is something where people do struggle with it. So it's not like you doing it to yourself, it's like you have a disease and you have a disorder that you need help getting. So I think that stigma, a lot of people feel like people are choosing to struggle with eating, and they're choosing to, you know, binge and to purge, but like that's not always the case. And I think education that could really help like low income like neighborhoods and societies.
So I'm the creator of the video, and the reason I decided to do my project like this was because I wanted to see how students from low-income communities, how they were taught about eating disorders, or how they weren't taught about eating disorders. So I felt like a lot of the answers that I got from some of the questions were pretty much similar. So a lot of the students knew just the basics about anorexia and bulimia, and it was only because of, you know, what they've seen in movies or what they've read in books, or, you know, they were taught just a basic idea about what they were. So not only was this to see what they knew this far in their lives, but it was also educational for them as well, because I did tell them, I did give them more information about each of the questions. There was a lot of back and forth, which I decided to edit out, because if I hadn't, then the video would be a lot longer. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. But yeah.